Hello, I'm Connor Pendergrast, and welcome to episode 17 of Support Stack. So, Dawn Perrott, we're back with a third episode. I am very privileged to have you. You are the AI Knowledge Manager at Fin, formerly Intercom, now colloquially known as Fintercom. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, Connor. How are you doing?
I'm grand. Just firing all the banter at you to start off. But we're talking, this is the third in a series of episodes about Operator. And I'm saying it's the third so that future Connor doesn't change the order and mess things up. But we get to talk today about like using, so we've talked about the knowledge management side in terms of updating content and in terms of the content readiness list and workflow and checklist, which has been really helpful. Today, we get to look at Operator in the context of when something goes wrong in a conversation. So tell us, set the scene for us, Dawn. What happened?
So yes, I want to tell a story about how Operator was used as a detective, really, to find conversations where I suppose I actually should backtrack a bit, because the start of it was R&D reached out to us over Slack, and they were sharing a conversation with us where a customer mentioned an internal feature flag, and they were worried that Fin AI agent gave internal information publicly. So what I was able to do in a matter of minutes was confirm that we don't actually have that feature flag in any public content. And I was able to check all of the conversations for that company. So different users within that company, I was able to see whether they had actually referenced this internal feature flag before. And what we discovered was that it was shared by their CSM. So it wasn't public facing content. It was content that was shared over a call that the customer remembered and later shared in a Fin conversation.
Yeah. So the general problem or the general job that people are trying to solve, or that you would try to solve for this, is, hey, there's this information that came up in this with this customer. Where on earth did this come from? And that's a really hard question to answer outside of having an LLM available to look through everything that you have access to and all of the customer conversations. So you used Operator for this?
Yeah, I used Operator. I mean, if I had to manually read through, I think it was searching through over 20 conversations. If I had to read through 20 conversations, it would be extremely manual. It would have taken my entire day. Whereas within 5-10 minutes, I actually was able to pinpoint where the information came from.
Yeah.
So it's very scalable for these kind of use cases. If something is if the customer is talking about something, you're able to pinpoint where it came from. If there is some issue with Fin's answering, you can say, Fin answer, you can share a conversation link within Operator and say, where did this language come from? Can you pinpoint this within the knowledge base? And you can identify within a matter of minutes, this is where the issue is.
That's perfect. So we're looking at the Operator thread here. Okay. And so this is not the real Operator thread that you worked through, because that's in your real Fin workspace, whereas this is just your demo workspace. So first thing to know.
Yes.
But is this how you started off? You just said, like, hey, and this can be anything that any feature flag or any piece of information. Is this referenced anywhere in our public knowledge base?
Yes. So for this, to simulate this here today, I actually created a few different conversations from the same fake company, essentially.
Super.
And what I was trying to do was share an example of the workflow I did in my normal working workspace. So I initially started off asking, do we have this feature flag? So I just gave it this name, referenced anywhere in the public knowledge base, articles, snippets, internal content. If Fin used this term, it would have had to come from somewhere in our content. So then Operator has looked for the feature flag name and confirmed it doesn't appear anywhere in the knowledge base. It searched all of the content public and internal.
Mm.
It if Finn used this term in conversation, it didn't come from your content. A few other places it could have originated is a data connector, procedure step, the customer's own message, a guidance rule. So I asked it to check these as well, and it confirmed that the feature flag name wasn't in any of those. I thought
Super.
I thought it was really interesting that operator was being a thought partner here and was like, okay, we checked the knowledge base, but have you thought about these sections?
Yeah, because there are so many places you can write these things down and add these things in. Just as like as someone who I spent a lot of my time working in procedures, and you can end up like in some cases codifying product knowledge somewhat in procedures to make sure that the procedure goes well, and that can end up out of date sometimes. And so that's another valuable use for operator, is to go through and say like, yeah, okay, the content is important to update, but also data connectors, descriptions in there, guidance, absolutely, guidance is critical, and procedures as well. So I think this is a really good example of that too.
It's definitely made it a lot more scalable to be able to maintain all of those facets of the product via
Yeah.
operator. You're no longer having to have it all within your head. You kind of can rely on operator to take a bit of the toll, so it's not as much cognitive load.
Mm-hmm.
So then I prompted operator again, and what I did in this case was I shared the conversation link where it was mentioned. So this is just a generated response I tested with. And basically what operator is doing here, it's looking at the conversation. So it's calling out initially, but this is the same as what happened internally. So Finn did not reveal smart deadline beta. The customer Jamie introduced the term themselves in their very first message. Finn was just mirroring what the customer said. So then it's giving an overview of what Finn did wrong. We don't really have to pay attention to that right now. And then it's giving a recommendation at the end. Adding a guidance rule could prevent this in future if you don't want Finn using feature flag terminology. I've actually added this as a terminology rule to the operator memory, so
Yeah.
it doesn't even get into the knowledge base. I'd be hesitant to add too much. I would be hesitant to add guidance here. My inclination would be to fix the content or add it to the operator's memory rather than creating guidance for something specific to this. Guidance works best when you don't have hundreds of different guidance scenarios. It becomes a bit of a whack-a-mole situation. It's much better if you have very specific guidance for very specific customers, I suppose.
Yeah. But if there was, I guess, higher risk involved in it,
Yes.
and someone, if you, dear viewer, for example, are using this to investigate something that is a bit higher risk than just leaking a feature flag name, then guidance could be a way of increasing or decreasing the risk of that as well, which might be helpful for people to think about.
That's true.
Yeah.
So,
Super. And because it came outside of Finn doesn't mean that Finn can't learn better from it as well.
for sure. The second recommendation was to investigate how Jamie obtained the feature flag name. So this is actually how it was almost rubber ducking with operator that when this was reported to us by our intern,
Yeah.
it got me thinking like, was it a CSM or someone in sales that actually mentioned this to the customer? And that's where they got the feature flag name. So operator acts as a thought partner as well when you're going through these detective cases. And this is the example where I was asking operator, was this mentioned in any other conversation? And it was pulling up the other conversations where the feature flag was named. And like specifically to that company as well. I was asking it. So this is the dummy company name I gave
Sure.
to these test conversations. And I asked it, was anyone from this company talking about this also? And it was able to highlight those conversations. So this is just an example of how it looks for this scenario. And it really did speed up the process of figuring out, okay, this feature flag wasn't named anywhere in the knowledge base. It was shared by a CSM.
Yeah. That's super. Yeah, it's. I think this is a really good example of using Operator as well to do things that would just be very time consuming for us as mere humans to do. And if anyone's interested, another example that I would have of using Operator is something that I've talked about on my daily email list as well recently, which is accounting for my notorious laziness. Which is so I spend a lot of time working in procedures, and there's a lot of value there, but you also have to make sure that they're working correctly. And one way to make sure that they're working correctly, just one of the ways, and you can't rely on it exclusively, but is what are called simulations in Fin, which is you set up a particular scenario and then you can run that through the simulation and see what the outcome, run the simulation through the procedure, see what the outcome is. And then you can also set criteria for whether it's a pass or fail. And so it's really helpful. I'm just a little bit too lazy to sometimes. What I will find in a similar sort of situation is if I end up looking at a conversation that didn't go through a procedure correctly, so maybe it didn't start the procedure, or maybe the procedure didn't work correctly. The one I was looking at today for a client, for example, I hadn't accounted for the conditions correctly in the procedure. I broke it last Friday, and it wasn't and because I didn't have a simulation set up, I didn't notice that I broke it until a customer conversation went the wrong way. And so one of the client colleagues flagged it with me, which was really helpful. And so what I've done is fix the procedure, and I'm just going to share my screen. I'm not exactly showing. No, I've pressed the wrong button. So this is from a test environment rather than the actual client's environment. But I said use this conversation to create a simulation in the procedure, and then it's got the test procedure name with the conversation link. And I also said use the exact responses from the data connector in that conversation. This is really important to include as well, because otherwise the simulation will just use the default data connector responses, which is not most of the time not correct for my procedures, which have lovely conditionals and sub procedures in them. And so this is just an example of how another way to use Operate, in this case, to make it vastly more efficient. You can also create other procedures that way as well and run them this way. But it's really helpful as a way of accounting for my laziness, as I said. And then it also makes it less likely that I will make that mistake in the future. Or when I do make mistakes in the future with that procedure, I rerun all the simulations, and then it says, hey, you made a mistake here because this simulation is suddenly failing because it's not, the outcomes that are down the bottom here the success criteria, one of them will fail because of the fact that it doesn't run correctly. So I wanted to throw in, it's not about debugging. Well, I guess it is actually about debugging a Fin conversation as well with Operator, but it's this one is more to do with procedures than content. But I think it's another really good example of using Operator. It gives you a little superpower that, once again, I will say accounts very well for my laziness.
Operator has multiple superpowers. It's applicable to all roles. So I use it for content. The conversation designers use it for procedures as well, probably similar to how your use cases are. Managers are using it as a teammate coaching tool. It has access to monitors. It has access to reporting data. It's very helpful if something is happening, if we're noticing a dip in Fin's resolution rate, we can prompt Operator, what happened this day that the metrics went down. So it really is applicable to a lot of different use cases.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Well, lovely. Is there anything else you want to share about Operator?
Just how it has changed my day-to-day work. I'm able to work. I think it's like having 5 extra people on the team, to be honest. It's massively helpful.
That's fantastic. Yes, I can imagine that Finn's knowledge base is pretty giant. I have no idea how you handle it.
It's very giant, and we're shipping most, like, every day something new. So
yes,
to keep on top of that, I don't think I would have been able to do it without Operator. There will also be a blog post coming from the new product introduction manager at some point. So that's going over our process when it comes to releasing features. Maybe that will be helpful for people as well.
Super, yes. And I imagine that you might be posting about that and sharing that. If people want to find that blog post in the future, Dawn, where should they find it?
So if anyone wants to follow me on LinkedIn, they can find tips and tricks there.
Goody. And that's Dawn Perrott on LinkedIn. And scroll down, click the link in there, and follow Dawn, and she will share that future blog post. Although by the time you're watching this, dear guest, maybe through the magic of time travel and editing, that's actually the present. Perfect, Dawn. This has been really, really useful. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience using Operator at Finn. There's definitely something very meta about that, and hopefully it's going to give a lot of good ideas for how to make the most out of Finn and the most out of Operator, and get great customer support experiences as a result of it. And find Dawn on LinkedIn. You can also find me on LinkedIn if you want to. But you can, more importantly, find future episodes of Support Stack right here. Just gently press that subscribe button, and then gently go down and feed my ravenous ego by giving me a nice little like. You can also find my daily email list at customersuccess.cx/daily. Other than that, have a lovely day. Thank you, Dawn, and goodbye.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.